This is Empire Sports Alliance, unfiltered. No fluff, no filters, just the real side of sports. We're talking athletes, coaches, agents, doctors, executives, the people behind the scenes who actually move the needle. From building careers to surviving the grind to winning off the field. This is where real conversations collide.
Welcome to another episode of Empire Sports Alliance Unfiltered. I'm Ronnie, I'm the wealth guy. My background is in hockey, and I've been working with entertainers and athletes for over 20 years here on the wealth management, more planning side of things. So my co-host, Eric.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric, and I've been a sports chiropractor, physiotherapist for the last 26 years, working with the Dodgers, Mets, Giants at the Olympics, and now I'm in Scottsdale doing some concierge work. And that actually is how I met our guest today. I'd like to welcome Juan Sanchez to the show. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Juan and I both worked with a lot of professional athletes, and we were introduced together. Juan is head of baseball operations and oversees everything out of Banner Health. But what I liked about Juan, his background, he has a number of different certifications, and it's kind of like just more tools in your toolbox, and you're able to pick and choose when you want to use them with the athletes and everything. So having all these tools at your disposal, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you think athletes are doing that shorten their careers and kind of take them out of it? What should they be doing instead to protect both their health, mental, wealth, all that stuff?
Really good question. So right off the bat, I think at any level, but especially at the professional level, you want to make sure you have your team around you, whether it's your nutritionist, your strength coach, your hands-on soft tissue guy, physical therapist, whatever. Have your team there for when you're ready to go. And everyone plays their role to keep you on the field and really just healthy and available to play.
Has it, because you've been private and I'll say corporate, is one easier to do stuff? How many politics are you dealing with in the corporate level?
Yeah.
All right, I got to follow this channel or...
So Banner historically they've been around in Arizona forever, like a hospital system. So the high performance center that I work at, and I'm the baseball performance coordinator there, it's very, very new. So we do have a lot of freedom to create and build, and that's what we're doing right now. I think we're finishing up our third off season. There will be off season, but is it easier? Yeah, I do. It's work-life balance is a little better. I do have an amazing team around me. I can take time off and know my guys need to be taken care of. Before, it was hard to do that. I did have a small staff, but they were coming there to see me. Now it's more the team approach that we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the tools you have at Banner, how many of the pro teams have access to all that stuff? And walk us through a regular program that you're doing to get a guy ready for the season. What does that look like?
So day one, it's very intense. I'm not in tech, but just me really dive in and try to figure out what limitations going on. Let's start with the movement screen. So by Joan approach, you should be familiar with. We'll see what conversations pop up there. Range of motion testing. We'll do strength testing with dynamometer. We'll do like a version of a mid-thigh pull. We use a belt squat attachment for that. We'll do power testing, and then depending on the skill and depending on the time of the off season, if season just ended and they're still pretty active, we like to get them on the mound. Let's give me 15 pitches. Let's see what the kinematic sequence is doing. Let's see what the force profile looks like on the mound, and really try and put everything together for the athlete, and kind of see where we need to attack.
How much analytics are you relying on, and how much are you using, I'm going to say, the human side of stuff also?
Still more human side for me, even for the athlete at the higher level. They're not always looking to tinker too much, right? So for them, they know what they're trying to feel. And part of my role is to help them get to that solution a little bit quicker.
Let me just hold on that real quick in terms of like analytics versus, again, personal aspect of things. Obviously, a lot has been said about the analytics, especially in baseball, et cetera. So what is your personal take? Is that, has it improved over the years during your career utilizing the analytics, or is it still the personal aspect of things that's more important? What's your personal take?
Personally, I think there's definitely going in the right direction. There was a point in time where it was all about the data and not really that, I guess, in-game experience for the athlete as well. So I know a lot of teams are now combining with the guys who've done it with the data team and figuring out what's best with the athlete.
Was that after Moneyball came out, where all of a sudden analytics became like crazy?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a great movie, but I would just imagine, and obviously they've done it back then, but all of a sudden the movie comes out, I think it seems like it had some type of impact. Right?
Definitely, it was the first domino to fall, I feel like, right? Yeah, no, that's kind of what started it all, I feel like.
But maybe, and you guys were talking about like being part of a corporate versus basically doing it independently. You spent some time with the LA Angels, right?
Yeah, I spent one season with the Angels in their minor league system. And it was early in my career. Great experience. Yeah.
So during that time with the Angels, I'm just wondering again, as always, trying to make examples. For the audience, obviously, they watch baseball, right? Which ones were the athletes that you experienced? So what was the difference between the athletes that stayed consistently elite and others that just struggled with reoccurring injuries on a regular basis? Not saying necessarily the fault of their own, but just what was the differentiator? What did you see? Was there common,
Yeah, I was recently talking to a buddy about this. What's the attention to the small things? So just take the off season, for example. Yes, everyone does the squats, the deadlifts, the cool stuff, right? Right. It's the working on your movement conversations. It can get tedious and it's not fun. It's not sexy. It's not Instagram worthy, right? So, the athletes that really excelled and really put distance between them and the competition were the ones that paid attention to the finer details of performance.
What about during the season to maintain?
I think it's the same.
What were you seeing? For me, I'd see some guys do more recovery stuff, or, they were better at the stretching post game and foam rolling, or like you said, the little things make a big difference. And I mean, I think that's one of the issues with travel ball. These kids are playing so much and they don't have access to people like us, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I feel that's where a lot of injuries are coming in.
But it definitely compounds both ways, right? If you're stacking up the days and you're doing your correct, your formal routines dialed, your stretch routine, your recovery routines all dialed, you're compounding those days for pretty career. And you can go back the other way as well. If you're missing your stretch session, your formal routine, whatever, you're missing meals, you're not fueling yourself properly, you're going to go back the other direction, right? So definitely, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with it's the recovery aspect, the pregame aspect, all that.
So obviously athletes have limited time and resources, right? If you look at a baseball player, you might have a strength conditioning coach, you might have a hitting coach, pitching coach, whatnot. How should they, basically manage their time, but also their resources? Obviously I'm the, more than wealth guy. So from a money perspective, time and money kind of go together to a certain extent. What do you see in terms of where should they focus? Again, recovery from training, from time, resources.
I think you got to find what the hole is, right? Or the lowest hanging fruit. If it's skill, you got to find a good skill coach, right?
Yes.
Definitely not neglecting like the body. The best ability is availability, right? So definitely it's got to be a big part of your routine, even as a young athlete, high school athlete, even before that.
Just not to interrupt your answer there, but I'm just thinking back at the Angels, right? With Trout, right? Phenomenal player, but has had a lot of injuries, right? Obviously, had a big contract and all that stuff. How long does an organization hold on to an individual like this that can't perform at a very high level? Seems to be the right type of guy for the locker room, but just again, as you said, abilities, availabilities.
Yeah, best abilities and ability. Yeah, that's a tough question. I think it's a business, right?
Right.
Baseball's a business. Every team, at some point, if you're not producing, it's going to be next man up.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, could be Trout, Ohtani. Yeah, they're looking to win, right? And if they're not helping them win, then
That's that.
yeah.
So on that, for you, Ronnie, from the wealth side, when I owned my small business,
Yeah.
I was taught, all right, you take a third of the money and put it in savings. You take a third of the money and put it in away for taxes, and a third to live off of, type of thing. How would you advise a new athlete, like a minor league guy? They're making $2,000 to $4,000 a month, right?
Yeah, so
Something
it might be a little
like
bit
that.
now. But
Yeah. They're not making a ton.
Right.
And then obviously a big leaguer could be making a ton more, but how do you say as a wealth guy, like, yeah, you know what? You're injured. Go get treated, or your body's feeling good. Go get trained. And
I think, especially as an athlete, right? Your body, that's your tool. That's what everything is relied on. So I think you should invest in it, obviously, from that perspective. Now, again, every athlete, if you talk about minor leagues, that's obviously a different, answer than you compare it to a major league in terms of, again, time and resources, money. But in general, whatever your situation is, and I know it sounds cliche, but what I would, suggest is plan early and plan often and continue to plan. Because again, things going to change, right? There might be injuries, but there might also be, again, on the positive side, where you get an extension. Well, you don't know, so you want to plan early. You want to have these discussions. I think not just from a wealth level, but from a health level. And I know we discussed this in previous episodes that you just, again, you do want to plan it. That planning looks different for everybody involved, right? So some guys, they might have families. Others, they might not. It's just them. So really, it depends. But I think consistently make sure to plan early and often. So
nice. So you do a lot with nutrition, right?
So I used to do more when I was independent and had my own business. Now we have an amazing sports nutritionist that is on staff. But still, when the athlete comes in, it's always a topic of conversation. Still involved, yeah.
So let's say for the high school, I don't know, minor leagues, are they getting a ton of stuff supplied in the training room?
I think it's better. What off season? Maybe not so much. Yeah.
So what are some of the supplements you say, all right, these are your must have, and these, yeah, if you can afford it,
yeah. Definitely can go wrong with the fish oils, right? Good quality fish oil, the creatine, good quality protein. I'd say those are the must-haves in an off season. And then bonus points, you're getting like a beta alanine type supplement, or maybe like a good sleep supplement that kind of gives you your whatever vitamins necessary, like magnesium, like a magnesium L-threonate with some L-theanine, things like that, just to, at the end of the day, an hour before bed, just to...
It's all about overuse and trying to prevent the injuries as much as possible. So you mentioned omegas. Some of our viewers may be like, omegas for the heart. Well, the truth is, if you up the dosage, actually, it's an amazing anti-inflammatory also. So you take that and combine it with the magnesium at night, and now the body can settle down.
Yeah.
And it helps.
besides supplements, where does sleep rank? in all this in terms of like preparation and recovery?
Man,
Because that's free, right? So
that's free.
yeah.
I think it's king. You can, even for me, just a professional, like my Baltimore, my whole food nutrition is pretty on point, and I try to do my recovery modalities pretty consistently. But if sleep's not there, like you almost play through push.
Sleep's where the body recovers also.
Yeah.
I mean, it is one of the most important things because you could be going, you're going to break down.
I was just saying, I think this is like the same in business too, right? You have all these supplements, all these things that you could get in vitamins, whatever it is. But I think people forget often enough, you just get a good night's sleep, right? You get that recovery time, you're going to be ready to go. I think sounds like it's key. So
Mental performance, right?
especially in baseball from a mental performance perspective, right? So,
But still on nutrition though, what's your take on NSF sport certified and not?
I think baseball, it's so like you guys are afraid to take anything that's not NSF. I know there's a lot of good supplements out there.
Can you guys elaborate real quick in terms of for the audience what that means?
Yeah, NSF is a certification process that it's pretty much a stamp of approval that a supplement is safe for the athlete to take without risk of banned substances. There's a lot of companies out there that, although it says creatine, it may be not intentionally banned substances in there, but maybe it'll clean a tray or something like that. NSF just means that that specific batch was inspected.
So here's an example of that. I had a Olympic swimmer. She qualified for 3 events to go to the Olympics. We were at Olympic trials in Nebraska. And once you qualify, you automatically get blood testing and urine and so forth. So the first night, she tested negative. Second night, tested positive. Third night, tested negative. Well, if you're really taking something, you're not going to go up and down like that. Yes. She did not go to the Olympics. Ended up coming back 4 years later and going to medaling, but what they found was her multivitamin, the batch before they made it, had trace amounts from some herbs that are not legal. And even though it was an extremely small trace amount, it showed up in the blood work, so you're done. And that's why the NSF is there, which is good for that. But my issue is, it doesn't mean it's a good product.
Right. No, there's
it doesn't mean it's doing what it says it's doing. And let's be honest, they're just paying for stamp of approval to put it in a big league locker room.
And that's expensive, right? As well, for some of these companies.
Yeah.
It doesn't have like $100,000 or something.
For flavor.
For flavor too?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, if you're a startup company, even if you have a good product, you might not have the financial means to get to that certification process, so they kind of keep you out, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. For me, it's frustrating because I think there are some amazing products out there that do not get the NSF cert, and athletes are so scared.
Yeah.
They won't do it.
Even a smoothie.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Now I can have all my protein. Yeah.
That's right, unfortunate. But great stuff, guys. We're going to step away here for a quick break for our unfiltered wacky stats, and we'll be back in just a minute.
All right, everyone. It's unfiltered wacky stats. And since we're talking about strength, power, and conditioning, we're going to go over some stats related to that. So, did you know when you start a program that before you're lifting and building muscle mass, about 30% of the strength gains in beginners during the first few weeks actually comes from a neurological adaptation, not muscle growth. So basically, the nervous system is learning to use the muscle you already have more efficiently before you actually grow new tissue.
Oh, wow. So the system basically tells you to grow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen to this one. So in terms of your bones actually get stronger from lifting. So even though you're working on your muscles. So if you do heavy resistance training, it can increase the bone density by about 1 to 3% per year, which is huge if you consider that most adults actually lose bone mass annually. So, in older adults, basically, strength training reduces fracture risk by like up to 40%, right? So,
Yeah, actually, a big portion of that is in the elderly in the hips. And it's super important for older people to do that to help prevent osteoporosis and osteopenia. All right. So we've talked about how important sleeping is. Well, the truth is, when you're doing nothing and you're sleeping, your muscle protein is synthesizing at peaks 24 to 48 hours after training, meaning you're literally building muscle while sitting on the couch or sleeping in bed. So do not skip sleeping. It's extremely important.
that's incredible. Yeah. But finish it off with this in terms of so the deadlift as one of the exercises, obviously, deadlift is basically a full body system check, right? So it activates about 75, percent of your entire muscle mass. So one exercise, and the other fact is it spikes testosterone, growth hormone, more than most other lifts there are. So I thought that was
pretty
interesting.
powerful. That's amazing.
That's good. Well, let's get back to the podcast. All right, guys. So we're back from our, break here, back with Juan and Eric. So yeah, let's get started again.
All right. So if you could reprogram younger athletes, and I know I keep coming to this, but travel ball is so different than when, well, I'm going to say Ronnie and I were growing up. You're younger than us, obviously.
Not too much younger. It's definitely a different animal now. It really is.
It's, if we could totally dive into the pros and cons of that, obviously. But what would you want them to think about the recovery and what they're doing from a mind shift to prolong their career and get them through it?
Yeah, actually, funny to bring up the travel ball. So I have a 15-year-old son, and right now, like, he's very much in it. We're training 3 times a week. He has the benefit of having me as a stepfather, right? And all my knowledge and expertise and my resources. So he does have a little leg up there comparing a regular, some of his teammates, right? But we talked about this is literally a conversation last night, and doing everything with intent. For example, if you're taking swings, like, what are you working on? Right? Not just swinging willy-nilly. It's every rep has a purpose. Every rep, you're working towards something. Every throw, like, what's going on there? So either, in my opinion, you're either getting better, making like those stacking the days, we're getting better, or you're getting worse, right? If you're practicing bad habits, you're just raving, right? All the time, and just, yeah. So having intent with everything you do. So that's 1. 2, right now we talked about that young athlete enhancing your nutrition. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to go paleo or keto, whatever it is. Whatever you're eating now, let's work on enhancing whatever it is. So if it's a bowl of Cheerios, even the minor league athletes, you'd be surprised there in the pre-workout meal that they have. Guys walking in with a Starbucks Frappuccino and a blueberry muffin.
Hey, do you know what Ruth used to have pre-meal?
Probably a beer. What was it?
Let me guess. 12 hot dogs.
Yeah.
8 sodas.
Can you imagine someone in a... It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. That's crazy. But yeah, just enhancing your meals, right? Getting in some colors in. Make sure you're getting adequate amount of calories to support your training, your skill, whatever it is you're doing. You got to be able to train hard, practice hard, and play hard.
Well, you say colors. It's funny. I always say to patients, eat 7 different colors a day. not 7 different skills, but it's like try to stick to the darker colored veggies and fruits, and then get rid of all the white stuff, the white flour, the white sugar, white rice. Yeah, I know rice, some people go back and forth on, but yeah, so I was
Just see, in terms of what you mentioned, hitting, so everything has a purpose, right? So everything from a training perspective, pitching, hitting, is very situational, right? So if you work with a relief pitcher, for instance, so does that training change then just because of the situations that come in? Because again, they might have a couple of guys on base, whatever. So is the training that specific, or how is it structured?
It can be. I think so. From a sports performance perspective, same thing with them. Their best abilities, availability. That's still working on whatever it is they're working on. Just try and get in the spot where they can get in the same positions repeatedly and get that feeling they're searching for. As far as like training, actual key variables, things like that. Yeah, it is a little bit different than the starting pitcher, right? Obviously they don't need to go as long. And
going off that, what about a pitcher? And it's going to be different for a righty versus a lefty to pick off a guy at first base, because I would think they're going to throw harder than throwing to the mound, because they're now trying to beat someone, and you're changing your form as opposed to how you pitch, obviously.
yeah.
So training-wise, are you guys taking that into consideration and working with those skills, or hey, let's just see how they do?
Yeah, it's actually never thought about it from that perspective, but I mean, we're training athletes, right? So be able to turn, quick throw, that's what we're training in the weight room. Just not necessarily to be a better pitcher, but to be, we're getting that piece, but to be more athletic. That's always going to be good.
How did the force plates and the cameras, and I mean, there's so many bells and whistles. How does that come in and help the athlete?
In a big way, I think. So I always tell strength coaches, like, your eyeballs in a little one, right? You can see if an athlete is explosive, if they're strong, if they're missing a little on the speed side, if they miss a little on the strength side, depending on how they jump, how they move. The force plate data does help. It does help us narrow it down, right? We can go like a dynamic strength index. So, for those of you who may not know, you take a 1 rep max rep estimate, and then you put it together with their vert, and it gives you a good idea of, are they a strong mover, are they a fast mover, are they a weak mover? It gives us a direction of where to go with the athlete. So that's just an example of how we can use the data to start pushing people in different directions to customize the training.
So, I have a question in regards to looking at the end of the season, potential like lockout with the MLB here. If something like that happens, right? Obviously, you guys have no impact on that. How does the preparation, how does that approach change for you towards the end of the season? And how does it change for the players?
It definitely, it does throw a curveball. I don't mind, because I get to hang out with the guys a little bit longer, and I was somewhat hands with them. Yeah, it's good for us.
So from a training perspective, for what you guys do, the services that you provide, it's actually a positive, we say.
Yes. Yeah. We do get more exposure with the athlete, more time with the athlete, just to make sure we're delivering really the reason why they came to us in the first place.
Well, and you have to remember, an athlete can have zero communication with the team.
That's a good point.
So
they're not allowed
to the coaches. During the last one, the big one, I know one of the Dodgers players was getting married, and coaches and go. Yeah, something is basic.
Oh, really? So that,
even if you're just going to a wedding or a birthday, zero communication. So we're able to come in and kind of really.
What if you play? You run into a guy at the bar with your coach. You go to a happy hour. You run into.
Technically,
You have to walk away.
Yeah,
I even ran into the staffing issue in my own business, where normally there's a couple of strength coaches that they're my only strength coaches for part-time to the team that they seek employment. Once the season ends, I couldn't even bring them on because they were potentially going back with the team. So yeah, no, there's definitely does throw a curveball into things for sure.
So what are you guys offering as a whole package to these guys? Because now it's, okay, how do we put something together to take care of them because they can't go there?
Yeah, for sure. So there's quite a bit of communication early in the off season before that lockout happens. So teams will reach out just to seek out places where their guys can go and make sure they're getting everything taken care of. So fortunate to be at a place where I'm very fortunate to be at a place where we have a great pitching coach, we have a great hitting coach, we have really everything. And my network with Eric and many others in the area, everything the athlete needs will be taken care of for sure.
So let me go back to terms of perspective. Obviously, I understand it's good for you guys from a perspective of having more time with the athlete. What about from an athlete perspective, though? I would imagine, okay, the season, you can't talk to any of the, again, teams that you're part of, whatnot. You don't know when the next season starts. Normally, I mean, there's a fairly rigid time schedule, I would imagine, in terms of getting ready, prepared for the next season. So, but if there's no spring training, how does an athlete approach that?
Yeah, that when you ramp up, right?
Yes.
So I think there is an expectations here that once it does pick back up, you got to be ready to go. So it does provide
So it's basically consistently, you just stay ready. Stay ready.
Stay ready.
Yeah, it's the flip of a dime.
Yeah.
So we're done. Let's go. Tomorrow you're recording.
Yeah, at a certain point, the pitchers act like certain pitchers, right? We're having that 5-day routine to start simulating that. You're going to have a really hard bullpen, high instead open every 5 days. And then kind of work backwards from there. The hitters, they're taking every day, ground balls, fly balls, everything. You got to stay sharp for sure. With the athlete, they get antsy real quick. So
I could imagine. You don't know when the season is going to start, if it's going to start, etc. You might continue to get ready for a couple of months if nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you have a short season.
And it could go for a week and they could get the shit together and make it happen, or it could drag out 2-3 months into the season.
So I'm going back to the finances, obviously, with my background, but, all-inclusive programs like you guys are offering to athletes like this, right? Who's paying for this stuff? Is it the athlete? Is it depending on is it the agent? Is it the ball club, which they can't really have? Who is it that pays for it?
There are some agents that do take care of their players really well. But majority our baseball athletes is them out of their pocket.
Okay. So
it's not the clubs.
Not definitely. Yeah. Well, they're not even allowed to talk to each other. So
yeah, definitely not the clubs. And I know some other sports, the training is taken care of by, I think the NBA, they provide off-season stipend for athletes to
imagine it's also different from sport, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had a jail at lockouts and all that stuff. So if these guys got to play overseas, I guess it's different, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And we toured a little a facility yesterday with one of the local agents that you guys are working with. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that in terms of do other agents offer that kind of stuff and what the setup is exactly?
So the agent I'm working with, he's like Jerry Maguire. Would you agree in that sense? Yeah. And, the smaller boutique agencies. So we have a house that can sleep 17 guys. And then in the backyard, there's a football-sized turf field and covered batting cage, 2 regulation pitching mounds, the hit traps and all that stuff to measure things, and then a large training room, and then I have a treatment center.
So you basically, again, there's just a center where all the individual coaches can go in there and work with the athlete.
His guys.
Oh,
this is only for his guys.
Yes.
But, and then it depends. Where does the guy live? Some guys are not coming there, for example, and that's when they go to banner out,
Yeah.
for a lot of that stuff. So,
Yeah, there are many athletes that they'll go where the relationship is, right? Where they work with the guy for a long time and someone they trust, and many athletes already have their team in place.
I was wondering, from an athlete perspective, I would imagine, again, it's all about personal relationship that you built over the years, right? Again, with your coaches, with your agent, or are some, could that be a pitch for an agent to say, look, I got all these facilities, obviously have some of the large agencies that are out there. Is that something that, in terms of like if a player signs with someone, is that something that you guys see as like a selling point, so to speak?
Yeah, I imagine so. The training is not cheap, right?
It's not, that's what I'm getting at. That stuff, it's costing.
It is an investment. I appreciate you bringing that up earlier in the show, but yeah, it's very expensive. So if there's an agent out there willing to help out their young guys, that's huge.
I can imagine. Great. Yeah.
all right. So we're now at the point in the show where we call it the walk-off 10. So we're going to do 10 quick true, false, one-word answers. You can't elaborate, say, well. So it's just a fun end of the thing. So, true or false? Most athletes train too hard and not smart enough. True or false? Talent is overrated compared to discipline.
False.
Okay. One word. The biggest lie athletes are told about performance.
Easy. One word? You said one word? Easy. That's easy.
Is far from easy. True or false? Lifting heavy weights is safer than most athletes think. True or false? Social media is hurting more athletes than helping them.
Very true.
True. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. One word, the most overused word in sports performance.
Damn. Functional training. I know it's 2 words, but
Okay, that makes sense. I'll give you that one. True or false? Most athletes don't take recovery seriously until they get injured.
true.
It's so
That's
different. I know. One word. The biggest waste of money in athlete training.
Wow.
It's nothing of waste, or is it that much waste? Which part is that?
Wow. Let's come back to that one. Let me.
All right.
Thanks.
True or false? You can predict an athlete's future success by their daily habits.
True.
One word. What separates elite athletes from everyone else?
Details.
Yeah, we spoke about
Yes, I think everybody has said that sales of details. It's a small thing. So.
Ask me that other question again. I think I'm ready for it.
Okay. One word. No, that wasn't it. Yeah. The biggest waste of money in athlete training.
Damn, I thought I had something. I'm sorry. Biggest waste of money in athlete training, non-existent.
So you say basically every penny is worth investing in yourself, so to speak.
Yeah.
Be that training, be that nutrition. Yes, I like that answer. That makes sense. That's good.
All right.
One, we appreciate it. Yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Again, that wraps up another episode of Empire Sports Alliance Unfiltered. Give us feedback, other topics that you want to hear about, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you.